Hello teachers. In this video, I would like to first teach you some concepts about the number line, and then I will give you a few indicators as to what you might say to your students. So let's get started. So let's read the definition of a number line. A number line is a horizontal line on which a chosen point is labeled by 0. To the right of 0, a chosen infinite sequence of equally spaced points are labeled by 1, 2, 3, etc. I'm going to explain this to you as we move along, but let's start with drawing a number line using this definition. A number line is a horizontal line, so let's draw a horizontal line. I'm just going to draw it freehand. And then it says on which a chosen point is labeled by 0. I may choose any point. I'll just choose this one and label it as 0. And next it says to the right of 0, a chosen infinite sequence of equally spaced points are labeled by these numbers. So I must now go ahead and choose an infinite sequence of equally spaced points. Equally spaced means whatever points I mark off on this line to the right of 0, the distance between any two consecutive points must be the same. I can either eyeball and do it, or for now I will use something very simple like this, and I'm going to mark off my points. Notice the minute I mark off my first point in the sequence, then the rest are completely determined, because my next point must be at the same distance from this point as this is from this point. So let me mark off all the points quickly. And obviously we can keep marking points, and we just put an arrow to indicate that pattern continues. So we've chosen an infinite sequence of equally spaced points, and now we must label them by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. So what we've just drawn is a number line. So let me say a few things. You might ask, why are we drawing a number line? So up until now, our students know these numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on as the whole numbers. What we've done here by drawing this number line is we've given each of those whole numbers a location or a place, and we have done it in such a way that the distance between 0 and 1 is exactly the same as the distance between 1 and 2, and and so on. And why do we do that? For a great number of reasons. Number lines are very useful to explain a lot of math concepts. Here's a number line. A number is a point on the number line. And right now we see certain points have been labeled by our whole numbers, but we can see that there are a lot of other points on the real number line. And now that we've drawn it, we can say, well, those are also numbers. And what are those numbers? They're not whole numbers. So what are those numbers? And we'll study that. So before I show you the definition of a real number written on the other board, I just want to point out, even though I'm calling this line a number line, strictly speaking, this is only a one-sided number line. Number line also exists on the left of 0, but for your classes in the elementary grades, we'll only be looking at the right side of the number line. So here's a figure of a number line. Let's read the definition. A real number, or just a number, is a point on the number line. Up until now, when we say a number, we've most likely thought it was one of these whole numbers. But what we're noticing is whole numbers are just a very small subset of all of the numbers on the number line. Every point on the number line is a number. And some of the points have been labeled as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And lots of other points. They're also numbers. Right now we don't know what their labels or names are, and that's what we're going to be pursuing in the sequence of the videos. Here's the number line. I want to quickly introduce a few terms. One is called a unit, and the collection of points between 0 and 1. In other words, this particular piece of the number line is called a unit segment. And often we denote it by square bracket 0, 1, and complete it with a square bracket. We want to know what its length is, and we say if the segment starts at 0, and ends wherever it ends, and here the segment ends at 1. The right end point 1 we say is also the length of this segment. So in other words, we are saying 1 is this point, and we're also now saying let's think of 1 as also the length of this segment, this unit segment. Similarly, we can say 2 is this point, 2 is also the length of this segment. In other words, 2 is this point, and the distance of 2 from 0 is 2. 3 is this point, the distance of 3 from 0 is 3, and the length of this segment is also considered 3. Same thing for each of the other points. So now I want to briefly say how you might present this to your students. I gave you all the precise definition of a number line and so on to increase your math content knowledge, but when you present it to class, you can simply tell them a number line is an infinite ruler. Your students are used to using rulers to measure out things, and we can tell them we're going to draw our own number line or our own ruler, and then you can proceed to tell them how to draw it. And you might consider using graph paper, so that way once they draw a horizontal line and choose a point and label it as 0, then they can count off a certain number of spaces and put a 1 there, and so then they can use that measurement for the unit segment and mark off equally spaced points. So graph paper will help your students mark off an infinite sequence of equally spaced points very easily. So the sketching shouldn't take very long for them to catch on. They will be drawing a lot of number lines, so the first one may take a little longer. And then you can, once they have the number line like this, you can then point to them on that the number line helps us give a home or location to the whole numbers that we already used, that we already know, and we place those whole numbers at equally spaced points on the number line. And then you can give them the definition of a number. A number is actually any point on the number line. So far we only know a few of those numbers by their names: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to be studying about some more points in here whose names we will learn are fractions, and fractions make up only some of the points on the number line. There are still some more points on the number line that are not whole numbers, they're not fractions, they are something else, and maybe we'll talk about it in a future video. But the focus of this series of videos will be on numbers that are fractions. It would be a good idea to go over the terminology unit segment carefully. Distinguish the word unit segment, which refers to this particular piece, and length of the unit segment refers to the number 1. And then let's see what I have written out here. I've written 3 is 3 copies of 1. That's kind of a unusual phrasing, and it is really a shorthand way of saying the following information. Let's look at 3. 3 is a point on the number line. We said 3 is also length of this segment. And notice this long segment is made up of 3 short segments, and each of the short segments is of length 1. So when I say 3 is 3 copies of 1, I mean this length 3 is this length 1 plus this length 1 plus this length 1. That's all it means. And same, 4 is 4 copies of 1. The reason I'm introducing this this vocabulary or this kind of phrasing is due to the following. When we talk about fractions, it will be useful to talk about it in this manner. You'll see it when we get to that video. One last quick thing you can do with your students is do the following. 2 plus 3 equals 5. That is something they have done with discrete objects. 2 meant 2 objects or 2 fingers, and 3 meant maybe 3 fingers, and then 2 plus 3 is counting on. You have 2 and then you count after 2, 3, 4, 5. And we can do the same arithmetic. 2 plus 3 equals 5 on the number line, and here's how we think of it. Instead of thinking of 2 as 2 discrete objects, we can think of 2 as the length of this segment, starting at 0 and going up to 2. So then 2 would mean this length of this segment, plus 3 would mean we attach to this segment another segment starting here, and that segment's length is 3. So when we do that, we get this long piece of segment that's composed of 2 pieces. One piece of length 2, second piece of length 3. And 2 plus 3 is to be understood as the length of this long segment, which you can see is 5 just because of the way we have placed the whole numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is useful to say right now or at a different time, because when we talk about fractions and we define addition of fractions, we're going to be defining adding fractions on the number line, and you will see that definition matches exactly with what I have explained before here, how to add 2 and 3 on the number line. It is using segments of those lengths and then looking at the longer segment and saying 2 plus 3 is really the length of the longer segment. I'll mention this again when we discuss addition of fractions. That's it for today. Thank you.